Sometimes the most profound lessons about love and family come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes they come wrapped in a will that changes everything. This is the story of my dear friend's grandfather, a man who taught us all what it truly means to care for someone when they need you most. He had 2 sons, and each of them had 2 sons of their own. But as his final months approached, it became clear that blood doesn't always determine who your real family is. In those last 6 months of his life, my friend and I found ourselves at his grandfather's side every morning and every evening. You see, he refused to go to a nursing home. He treasured his independence, his dignity, his own 4 walls. All he needed was a little help getting ready each morning and settling in each night. Such simple things, yet they meant the world to him. That I should explain how I came to be part of this story. I had just finished my mandatory civil service in a retirement home, a year that had opened my eyes to what really matters in life. When young people work with the elderly, something beautiful happens. The arrogance of youth gives way to wisdom, the rush of daily life slows down to appreciate the precious moments that truly count. When my best friend came to me, his eyes filled with worry, asking for my help, I didn't hesitate for a second. His grandfather needed someone who understood how to care for him properly, and I had learned from the best. What my friend didn't tell me at first, what he only shared much later, was that his grandfather had said he would rather end his own life than be forced into a nursing home. My friend kept that burden to himself, not wanting to pressure me with such heavy stakes. That kind of thoughtfulness, that's the mark of true friendship. The plan was simple. I would teach my friend the proper techniques for a few weeks, then supervise for a few more weeks, and then he would take over on his own. But something beautiful happened during those months. We became a team. Every morning, every evening, we were there together. His grandfather became like family to me, the grandfather I never had growing up, and then, just like that, it was over. A stroke took him quickly, peacefully, just 2 days in the hospital before he passed. 2 days later, my friend asked me to come with him to the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. Apparently, his grandfather had specifically requested that the will be read the day before the funeral, unusual, but not unheard of. When I asked why I needed to be there, my friend told me the lawyer had officially invited me. His grandfather had left me something as a thank you for my service. That I felt both embarrassed and honored, that this wonderful man had thought enough of what we'd done together to remember me in his final wishes. Now, I need to tell you about my friend's father and uncle, 2 men who saw $ where others saw love. We arrived at the lawyer's office, and the tension was immediate. Why are you here? His father demanded, his voice sharp with suspicion. I know Dad jokingly called you his 5th grandchild, but this is for real family. His uncle chimed in with even more venom. I bet this little opportunist hoped he'd get some money from the will. I tried to stay calm, explaining that the lawyer had asked me to be there, that I had no idea why I was included. But his father's rage only escalated. If you manipulated your way into his money, I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your life, he shouted, his face red with fury. That's when my friend had finally heard enough. Show some respect and stop shouting, he said, his voice steady but firm. I know you 2 didn't really care about your father, but show at least a minimum of respect. How dare you talk like that to your elders? His uncle exploded. My friend's response cut through the air like a blade. You 2 get exactly as much respect from me as you showed your own father. None. The word echoed in the silence that followed, and for a moment, both men were speechless. We sat down to wait for the other 2 grandchildren to arrive, and what I overheard next made my blood run cold. These 2 men, who had just lost their father, were talking about the new cars they'd bought, the expensive jewelry, the lavish vacations they'd planned. All purchased on credit, all counting on inheritance money to pay the bills. Not once, not a single word about missing him. Not one mention of grief, of loss, of the man who had raised them. Just greed, pure, calculating greed. They seemed to be in competition over who could spend their anticipated inheritance faster. Finally, everyone arrived, and the lawyer began to read. What he shared was a letter, several pages long, but it boiled down to something that would change all of our lives forever. In recent years, the grandfather had written, I realized that some people in my family cared far more about me than others. I was especially disappointed in my two sons, but I wanted to be completely fair, not biased by emotion. So I created a point system. The system was elegantly simple: a letter or phone call, 1 point, plus 1 extra for longer conversations; a visit, 2 points per hour, plus 1 point per hour of travel time; helping with tasks, 3 points per hour, and then came the results: 3 years' worth of love measured in numbers. His first son, 8 points; his second son, 10 points; the other grandchildren, 150 and 133 points; my friend's brother, 288 points; my friend, 7,341 points; and me, somehow, impossibly, 5,883 points. My lawyer has liquidated most of my assets except the house, the will continued. Once it's sold, the money will be divided according to these points. Each person will receive their share based on how much they truly cared. The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a whisper in that room. And then, chaos erupted. Both fathers began shouting simultaneously, claiming we had manipulated the system, that the will would never stand in court. They were so certain of their righteousness, so convinced that they deserved wealth simply because they shared DNA with this man they had ignored for years. Of course, they sued. All of them together, united in their greed if nothing else. But there was something they didn't know, a clause in the will that hadn't been read that day. Anyone who contested the will would forfeit their entire inheritance. 3 years, 3 long years of legal battles, accusations, and bitterness. But in the end, justice prevailed. When we finally received the money, I was overwhelmed. The amount was far more than I felt comfortable accepting. I wanted to share it with the other grandchildren, feeling guilty about this unexpected windfall, but my friend, wise beyond his years, looked me in the eye and said something I'll never forget: you cared for him when he needed you most, without expecting anything in return. That makes you 10 times more family than any of them ever were. They got exactly what they deserved. And in that moment, I understood the grandfather's final lesson. Family isn't about blood, it's about showing up. It's about caring when someone needs you. It's about love in action, not just love in words. Sometimes the greatest inheritances aren't measured in money, they're measured in the moments we choose to be present for someone else. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe has a beautiful way of recognizing that kind of love. Like, subscribe and share.